Hello everybody, Adam Monk here again, back with another Friday show, and before we start, it's time to celebrate. Yeah, that's because I was finally, after about 6 weeks, right about a result, and not even like half right, because I claimed to be right about Arsenal at the Etihad, and they drew, they didn't win, but Villa won at the Emirates, and to be honest, I didn't really believe half of what I was saying myself, but they did. And just a quick shout out as well to Mr. 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗘, who must have watched my video last week and as a mark of respect helped me out to be right, because of course Arsenal were on top, as you'll remember, in the first 45 minutes, dominating the game, looking like they were going to find that breakthrough until Zinchenko got hold of the ball, dilly-dallied a minute, and then thought, you know what, I remember what Adam said, and it's about time that he got one of these videos right. So he just leathered it out of play, which was a real classy thing to do on my behalf. So thank you, Zinchenko. Of course, your teammates weren't very happy with you, but you did it for the greater good, so cheers, pal. Anyway, this week it's time to turn our attention to the magic of the FA Cup, and it's Manchester City versus Chelsea. And as we know from watching the FA Cup, anything can really happen in this competition if you look at whatever the hell that was at Old Trafford the other week. But this time it's treble chasing Manchester City. You look formidable at the moment, so Chelsea fans, you're probably thinking there's no real way Chelsea have a chance or we can win this game, but fear not, because if you look through the history books, you just might. And you just might if they rotate Rodri.
One step beyond.
Now, just a bit of context on the Manchester City side of things for this fixture. Now, you will know that the FA Cup final is wedged between the two Champions League quarter-finals, which are of course big games in any team's season. Now, luckily for Manchester City, and I'm not trying to downplay the treble last year, but luckily this fixture last year for City was Sheffield United at Wembley, so City could get away with the rotation that they always do in the FA Cup semi-final. Pep's been doing it for 6 years, genuinely. And the last time that City progressed before that in an FA Cup semi-final was back in 2019 when they played Brighton, and again could get away with rotating when they had those Tottenham quarter-finals wedged between this fixture. And we all remember what happened in those games.
It's Tottenham, and for all Spurs around the world, it's terrific.
But let's trace back the most recent years. So let's go to 2022, the season before last. They played Liverpool at Wembley and lost 3-2 and were 3-0 down at half-time. And this is the lineup that they played that day, with 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗏 in goal, Fernandinho, who was like 53 at the time, playing at centre defensive mid, Raheem Sterling playing up front, who always seemed to shit the bed against Liverpool every time he played against them, and 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 playing as well. Then the season before that, in the semi-final, they played Chelsea ominously and lost 1-0 thanks to a 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗏 goal. And in that game, you can see City rotating again, with 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 starting in goal, 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 up front instead of Sergio Aguero, Ferran Torres out wide instead of Phil Foden, who was in fine form at this time. And then the season after that in 2020, they lost 2-0 at Wembley to Arsenal. Now, granted, Arsenal did have 4 shots to 16 in this game, but nonetheless, here's the lineup for that game again, with no Sergio Aguero playing, no real recognised defensive midfielder, no Rodri or Fernandinho there in the 6, and Eric Garcia as well at centre-back. So in short, history tells us that Pep Guardiola always rotates in the FA Cup semi-final, and so far in his City career, always loses when playing a big 6 side at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final, because he has to rotate around this part of the season. So actually, this fixture bodes really well for Chelsea. And you might be thinking, Adam, yes, Chelsea are a traditional top 6 side, but right now they've got a megalomaniac chairman who's obsessed with signing under-21 players and consequently a mid-table, and that would be true. However, if you've watched my videos, then you might know that I love a good narrative and kind of believe in them, and I mentioned last week that Unai Emery was returning to the Emirates, and this script could kind of play out in Aston Villa's favour, and in this case, Cole Palmer is playing against his old club, and of course, he's already scored against them at Stamford Bridge this season, and simply put, he's been one of the best players in the country this year. So when you got Cole Palmer, tactics aside, you've got a chance against anyone. If you look at this goal, the first he scored against Everton the other day, is an absolute joke. And if you can get a player of Cole Palmer's ability in these pockets, in this space, give him time to turn, he can just do it on his own as and when he chooses. The touch out of his feet and then the nutmeg are absolute filth. And then the cut inside and the fake, the back heel to Nicholas Jackson, throwing another 2 players off. So in that swift motion there, he's almost single-handedly bypassed Everton's entire midfield in that move. And once he receives the 1-2 on the edge of the box, the finish as well is just equally as sublime. And to be honest, if Foden or Rodri don't win Player of the Year this year, then for me, it has to be Cole Palmer. He's just been ridiculous. So when you've got a player of Cole Palmer's stellar ability, you know that you have got a chance, but as we know, it's also going to take more than that to stop an incredible Manchester City side. But fortunately for Pochettino and Chelsea, they've had two bloody good games against them this season, particularly the one where they drew at the Etihad Stadium. And they actually used Cole Palmer in this game to exploit City's high line and transition quickly using 𝗲𝗈𝗍𝗈 at the Etihad, and they kept getting in, particularly in the first half, by doing this. As we know, Cole Palmer's been playing 10 most recently for Chelsea, but when he starts on the right against Manchester City, then drifts inside and creates a box midfield, this then gives Chelsea a higher chance of winning the ball in the middle of the park, and then when in this game it was Ake, but this time round it'll be 𝗲𝗓𝗓, has advanced up the pitch, Chelsea can push forward 𝗲𝗓𝗍𝗓 or 𝗦𝗶𝗴𝗍𝗓 or Raheem Sterling or whoever it may be on the right in behind, and then they can transition quickly and also use Nicholas Jackson's pace to exploit City. And this also bodes even better for Chelsea because Kyle Walker is just coming back from injury now. Real Madrid game is tomorrow, so I don't know if Kyle Walker's going to play in that.
Gotta take a little time to think things over.
But if he does, then you can assume he's not going to play in the Chelsea game. And if you look at the 𝗫𝗏𝗡 fixture from last week when Manchester City played there, the Rodrigo goal that they scored was hit down Kyle Walker's flank with sheer pace. And then Real Madrid were in behind. And look, I'm not saying Chelsea for 1 minute have a wide player as good as Rodrigo or Vinicius, but they do have wide players as fast as those two. So they can exploit that width if they have players hugging the touchlines. And then if Kyle Walker's not playing, they're going to have an even bigger chance of getting in behind because, of course, Kyle Walker played in the Etihad game against Chelsea and they still managed to get in on his side using Raheem Sterling. So it's going to be even easier if it's 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗍𝗓 or John Stones or Rico Lewis. And then the next point I wanted to make that bodes well for Chelsea is something I've actually observed as a Manchester City fan. Now, for the record, if City fans are watching this, I love Stefan Ortega and Ederson equally, and I think they both give things differently to the team, particularly Ortega's, proficiency in shot stopping for a start. However, Stefan Ortega will start this game at Wembley, and if you actually look at the stats comparing the two, City do concede possession a lot more when Stefan Ortega's in net, and that's probably because he's not as good at long kicking, yet he persists to do it because, well, obviously Pep's telling him to do it in the dressing room. Who can blame him? So yeah, just to illustrate this and firstly to highlight that I'm not completely slagging Ortega off, you can see there that his save percentage is higher than Ederson's per 90. But he does make one more save per 90 than Ederson, which will tell you that he's conceding more shots as well, slightly. Maybe Ederson's letting more in, but it don't really seem that way. But here we go. This is the difference between Ortega and Ederson. If you look at the passes attempted, it's very close, but Ortega edges him on passes attempted per 90. And he also averages 1.6 more long passes attempted per 90 than Ederson, which is insane when you think of how good Ederson is at kicking and how he actually racks up several assists for City throughout the last few years. But there it is, the long pass accuracy per 90. Ederson absolutely wiping the floor with Ortega there. But the stats tell you that Ortega actually attempts more passes than Ederson, but with less success. And this is simply just because he's not as good at Ederson with the ball at his feet, yet he's going to persist playing the same way that Ederson does. Meaning, when he kicks it into the middle of the park, there's going to be a higher turnover of possession or a higher chance for Chelsea to win the ball, and even more so when Rodri doesn't play, and I'm not sure he will in this semi-final because Pep's going to need to rotate him with the Champions League games and the title running as well. So if Kovacic is at defensive mid, or Núñez or Akanji drifting into the six in the pivot with Kovacic or something like that, Chelsea are going to win the ball more than they usually would. Anyway, yes guys, it's time for the interview part of the video now, and this week I've got a good friend of mine, a Manchester City fan called 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔, but also Mr. Worldwide. He goes to several football games and was actually at Stamford Bridge watching Cole Palmer have that masterclass against Everton the other day. So he knows his stuff, he's a lovely guy. You may well know him from Twitter as well if you're often on there. So nonetheless, 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔, take it away.
And this isn't scaremongering, right? So basically I've had to do my research on this video.
Oh, no, here we go.
No, well, look, right, so Pep in FA Cup semi-finals, right? I'm just going to take you through the history books, okay? So, of course, last season we had Sheffield United, so we could get away with rotating. But, obviously, this fixture is always wedged between the Champions League quarter-finals. So, Pep often, every single year, rotates in the FA Cup semi-final, no matter who he's playing. So, the year before last, we lost to Liverpool after heavy rotation at Wembley. The year before that, we lost to Chelsea 1-0 thanks to a Ziyech goal after heavy rotation. Then the year before that, City also lost to Arsenal after heavy rotation. And then the only time we got through the FA Cup semi before that was against Brighton when we rotated and could get away with it. So Pep has never beaten a top 6 side at Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final. So do you think this time he will? Is that a worry? Because he is going to rotate again. It's just how much is he going to rotate?
Hey, I mean, before last season, Pep had never won a Champions League around City. I mean, we can't doubt. Listen, we can't doubt the great man. I refuse to doubt the great man until he gives me a reason to doubt him. You know, I mean, the history. Listen, history is there to be changed at the end of the day. Like I feel like that's what City and Pep have done. I mean, if you just said before, even like I said, if you just said in March last year, not even March, if you just said in February last year that City would have done the treble, everyone looked at you like you were crazy. And then, you know, things just kind of seem to fall into place. And it seems like it's happened this year again, where it's looking like, oh, you know, the team hasn't quite got purring. Arsenal might storm away with it. Liverpool might storm away with it. And it's like both just had these freak losses in the same weekend. And it just looks like, hey, 4 in a row. So back-to-back FA Cups to do that as well.
Right, no worries then. Well, talking about Chelsea and talking about an ex-City player, obviously Cole Palmer, you watched him score 4 the other day. He was absolutely magnificent. He's been magnificent all season. Obviously, he's the danger man, but what do you make of how Cole Palmer's performed this season? He's obviously stepped up to the plate. Did you ever expect him to hit these heights, having watched him at City in the academy and bits in the first team?
It's interesting because I'll be honest, I've always really liked him, especially as a person. Like he comes across really, really nice, and he's very he's got a lot of personality to him, which you don't always get with footballers. So I've always kind of been a fan of him. But I'll be honest, watching him in the academy, I did think, because I'm a bit of an aesthetics merchant, they call it. I actually did think that McAtee was someone brought up a tweet the other day that I said in like 2021 that I believe that McAtee's the better talent. I still do believe that, you know, at the time he was showing me, you know, more signs. Maybe I think it's Palmer's also physical development that's probably aided him, you know, translating it into the senior game a bit better. But I think he's an incredible player. He's done way more than I thought he would do, to be perfectly honest. I thought maybe he'd go to Chelsea. I thought maybe 10, 11 goals, you know. And also I wasn't aware of his penalty taking being this good. I didn't realize when he was on them at Chelsea. I was like, is this something that maybe I've just missed? That he's just this really, really good penalty taker, and then he's gone to score 9 this season in the league. He just hasn't missed a single one.
It's ironic as well because City have been so bad at penalties throughout like the last.
Right, Gundogan, Mahrez, like Sky, yeah. Just he had this one just in the chamber. Just decided, you know what? Yeah, I don't fancy him.
Yeah, I mean, like in a wider context, Chelsea obviously they're not hitting the heights that they'd want to as a club at the moment. But I think personally, like given the fact that 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏 is obsessed with signing PL2 players who are like under the age of 21, effectively, like I think Pochettino's actually done quite a good job this season. That's probably like my hot take of the Premier League this season. I really think he's done quite good. Is there anything else that you like about the Chelsea side that you've seen this season other than Cole Palmer?
To be fair, I think like having watched them, because I've been watching them this season, kind of this whole, you know, Chelsea doing so badly and this, that, and the other. So, you know, seeing them up front yesterday and seeing like, you know, Palmer was really good, but also Jackson was surprisingly good. I've been somebody who hasn't been the biggest fan of him all season, but the goal he scored yesterday was kind of, I said when he scored, it was like Bergkamp, he's taking it down on his left and he's volleyed it. It didn't seem like something that I expected him to be capable of. So he was really good. What else though? Like Caicedo was actually pretty decent yesterday as well, and I think he's been getting a lot of heat this season because I mean it's very, very difficult to come in as a 100 million plus player if you're not pulling down trees every single week. You're like the worst player. You're the worst player in the world. I mean, we see that with, you know, how people have reacted to Grealish, how people have even reacted to 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏, you know, inflating his transfer price by about 23 million. But even still, you know, everything is kind of under a microscope. So it's been good. It was like good to see him actually put in a good performance. I think it's the best I've seen him play. Maybe that's because I haven't watched too much of Chelsea. Maybe Chelsea fans won't like me saying that. It's the best I've seen him play personally. Mudryk as well. He's another one who, I say yesterday, he played a pass where he's like, first time he's just switched the play and it's just perfectly landed at Malo Gusto's feet. And then by the end of the same move, he's just completely fluffed what would be a really, really like easy chance to just finish. And they've got a lot of players like that, where it's like they show you really, really, you know, good things, and then you're like, okay, you can kind of see why you were brought in and why you've had all the kind of hype around you and all of that, and then they kind of what's it, flatter to deceive, is that the saying? I think it is, isn't it? But I think that they have got good players. They've got players that can hurt you. It's just whether it's just what version of Chelsea will turn up really. Because if the Chelsea that turned up against Everton turn up, then it will be in for a bit of a game.
Well, that's my final question. What do you think is going to happen? So how do you think the game's going to play out? Will Chelsea, because obviously Chelsea have got a bone to pick now with Wembley because they absolutely bottled it against an under 8 squad, which is what was left on the pitch in that Liverpool team in extra time. They should have took that game by the scruff of the neck. They didn't. So they've got a point to prove. I think they're on a slight up to. They're actually, other than City and Arsenal, they're the most formed team in the league in the last 2 months.
Really?
So unbeaten in 9. So I'm a little bit not worried because I always trust Pep, but I think that the FA Cup semi is a banana skin for City. So how do you think the game's going to pan out? And also end it with a score prediction as well.
Oh, you see, that's the one I was trying to avoid. I was like, I can give you a bit of a story of the game, but when you're asking me to go out on and
put your neck on the line.
Right, balls on the line. All right, fine. Okay, so I reckon, and this does seem to happen in a lot of the big games, it'll be like we'll have a lot of chances. There'll probably be one that falls to Haaland. Haaland might not take his first chance. Might have maybe another one that falls to Grealish, another one that falls to, and it might seem like, okay, we're dominating the game. And it just seems like, I don't know why or for what reason, there is this thing that just the first shot on target that the other team have just seems to go in every time.
Yeah.
I feel like it might be another one of those. But I reckon we'll get something back. I reckon it'll be another Rodri. I mean, if Rodri plays, obviously, as you said, rotation. But yeah, I think we'll get one back, and it might be forced into extra time, and then get a win. I can see penalties, to be honest. I can see penalties, but I'd hope it wouldn't go there. But I can see it go. I could see a 1-1 and a penalties, and then it could go either way on penalties. But I've got to go and stick on that. We've got to go.
That's just about a score prediction. Basically,
yeah. Listen, I'm trying to cover all bases because if you clip me up and I was like really wrong and it was like a 4-0 City, I'm just gonna look like a bit of a donut, aren't I? so.
Right, well, we'll take that. A cagey game, I think it will be too. 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it, pal. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much, 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔. Yes, the FA Cup semi-final, always a precarious fixture in general, and one that City have actually lost more often than not, very ominously. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, but I also just wanted to say as well, as a side note, right, are you ready for this? I don't really think it's that controversial, to be honest, but I think Coventry will beat Manchester United at Wembley, so we'll come back to that one next week as well. It's just a gut feeling. I really do think the United won't know what's in store for a team that have got everything to play for and nothing to be scared of. So yeah, I can actually weirdly see Coventry winning that game, but we'll come back to that one anyway. Yeah, don't forget, what the hell was that? Oh my, don't forget to, I've done it again, oh my god. Don't forget to there we go. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. I've been Adam Monk. Have a lovely weekend when you're watching this. I'll be in Germany this weekend when you're watching this, doing some cool stuff over there with like 𝗕𝗓𝗍𝗂 and that. So there'll be a video out on that in a few weeks. But yeah, anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. I will see you very soon. Goodbye.